Weeps Canyon Gardens unfurled beneath the gentle embrace of a late afternoon sun, where vibrant blossoms spilled over the cobblestone paths, a riot of colors spilling from the heart of the earth. The air thrummed with the sweet perfume of lilacs and honeysuckle, intermingled with the rich loamy scent of freshly turned soil, a symphony of nature that wrapped Yara Ridgewell as she knelt in the garden embrace. Her fingers, calloused yet tender, dug into the earth, coaxing it to yield its secrets. Dark auburn strands of her hair escaped the confines of her practical braid, catching the sunlight like threads of gold. Nearby, the gnarled roots of ancient trees offered dappled shade, guardians of both the dead and the community, while the murmur of a stone fountain sang softly in the background, a soothing melody that spoke of life and growth. Yara straightened, wiping her brow with the back of her hand, her fingers stained with soil. Remember last spring harvest festival, Quion? I still can't believe we managed to build that giant scarecrow in a seed afternoon. Her voice carried a lightness, contrasting the weight that sometimes pressed upon her heart in this sacred place. She glanced up at her mentor, whose broad shoulders relaxed against a bench carved from weather-red wood, a playful smile tugging at his lips. "Ah, yes. And your infamous hat that flew off in the wind, only to land in Mrs. Hargrove's soup pot." Quion chuckled, the sound rich that the soil they tended.
You thought it was a culinary disaster.
But it turned out to be the highlight of the day, didn't it? He leaned forward, elbows resting on his thighs, his gaze drifting across the garden as if he could summon the memories from the blooms. Community is nurtured under these trees, amidst the laughter and the mistakes. It's what keeps our roots intertwined, even in these troubling times. Yara's heart tightened. The reminder of the threats lurking outside their haven shifted her thoughts. But she let the warmth of their banter wash over her, if even for a moment. "It does pie. Sometimes I wonder if we could keep it safe," Quion, Yara confessed, her hands stilling among the flowers. The vibrant petals seemed to lean closer, eavesdropping on her whispered fears. "Their talk of poaching again. I can't stand the thought of losing any of this, our heritage, our home." Her voice quivered slightly, a testament to the emotional weight she carried, yet she held her chin high, determined not to let despair take root. Quion regarded her with his steady gaze, the corners of his mouth relaxing as he nodded, understanding the silent storm that raged within her. "You have strength, Yara, more than you know. Just as these flowers bloom after the harshest winters, so too will our community flourish if we stand together. Remember the quiet persistence that brings about change, not just the loud proclamations," he encouraged, his words wrapping her like the warm sunlight filtering through the leaves. Yara felt a flicker of hope, igniting the resolve that had waned in the shadows of her worry. If the earth beneath her was whispering promises of resilience and renewal. As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the garden, Yara inhaled deeply, the fragrance of the flowers swirling in her lungs like a balm for her worries. Quion rose, brushing the soil from his hands, his presence a steady anchor in the midst of her storm. "Let not lose sight of what we've built, Yara. Tonight, we gather, and we celebrate what we protect. The whispers of the garden will guide us, just as they always have." Yara nodded, feeling the pulse of the land beneath her fingers, a promise of unity against the challenges ahead. With each breath, she began to envision the future of Weeps Canyon Gardens, her heart swelling with a fierce determination to safeguard their shared legacy. The sun hung low over Weeps Canyon Village Square, casting long shadows that danced across the cobblestones, their warm hue dulled by the bustle of the late afternoon. Laughter and chatter intertwined in a symphony, yet a darker undercurrent wove through the voices, pricking at Yara Ridgewell's senses first as she navigated the throngs of villagers. She felt the weight of her calloused hands, remnants of the day spent nurturing the Weeps Canyon gardens, where each bloom sang a testament to the earth bounty. But today, she passed by the vibrant stalls and children darting playfully allied her. The usual symphony felt discordant, a harmony teetering on the brink of dissonance. Her heart quickened. The fragrance of blooming flowers, once a source of comfort, now mingled with an unsettling tension that clung to the air like smoke from a distant fire. "Did you hear about the poachers last week?" A villager voice cut through the din, thick with apprehension. Yara paused, her breath catching, as she turned toward a group huddled near a stall overflowing with wildflowers. The elder, a stooped figure with silver hair that shimmered, leaned closer, his brow furrowed in worry. "Spotted them near the river, lurking in shadows. If they take our deer, our entire way of life will wither away." His voice trembled, not just from age but from the weight of loss that hung heavy on his heart. Yara's pulse quickened. She had always understood the delicate balance their community shared with nature, but now it felt that fragile. Gossamer strands spun by a spider at dawn. "What do we do, elder?" another villager injected, her eyes wide with fear. "If they keep coming back, we might lose everything." The elder's gaze hardened, a flicker of resolve igniting within him. "We must protect our land, our traditions. We cannot let greed snuff out our legacy. Gather the others. We must act, and soon." Each word struck Yara like a bell tolling at dusk, an unsettling reminder of the urgency pressing upon her. Her heart sank further, weighed down by the urgency of the moment. She could feel the thrum of the earth beneath her feet. It was as if the land itself was calling out for a champion. Yara stepped forward, drawn by a force greater than fear. "I'll join you. We have to protect the deer, the flowers, everything that defines us. If we don't act now, we risk losing more than mere creatures or plants. We risk losing our connection to this land, to each other." Her words hung in the air, earnest and unwavering, yet they stirred a ripple of doubt in the gathering crowd. Whispers of dissent flitted between them, like errant leaves carried by a gust of wind. Some nodded, but others turned wary eyes toward her, questioning her conviction. Would they follow her lead? Would they rally together against such a tangible threat? The elder regarded her with a measured gaze, as if weighing her resolve against the gravity of their plight. "Then we must meet at the old oak tomorrow at dawn. We will forge a plan, and we will not falter in our duty to our home." Yara felt a fire ignite within her, a promise to stand firm. Yet as she stepped back, the shadows lengthened, tugging at her heart with the weight of uncertainty. The villagers dispersed, leaving her alone in the square embrace, the vibrancy of life around her now tingling with the stark reality of their precarious existence. The beauty of Weeps Canyon was at risk, and the urgency to act settled over her like a heavy cloak, whispering of courage yet to be found, of battles yet to be fought. As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of crimson and violet, Yara lingered in the square, feeling the pulse of the community, a blend of hope and fear. She could already envision the gathering at dawn, a mosaic of faces determined to protect what they cherished. But doubt gnawed at her. Could she inspire them to face the unknown? With each heartbeat echoing in her ears, she knew she had to be the voice that broke the silence, the heart that stirred their resolve. The stakes were clear, and as the stars began to prick the velvet sky, a full thought consumed her. Tomorrow would demand more courage than she had then summoned before. The fragile balance of their world loomed ahead, and Yara Ridgewell was poised to challenge it head-on. Deep within the heart of Weeps Canyon, the air trembled with anticipation as Yara Ridgewell pressed onward, her footsteps muted against the earthen trail. Towering rock formations loomed like ancient sentinels, their jagged edges softened by the creeping vines of resilient wildflowers. The sweet, heady fragrance of blooming flora intertwined with the rich, loamy scent of the soil beneath her feet. A stark reminder of the vibrant life she was fighting to protect. Shadows danced behind her, flickering in the waning light, as she navigated the narrow paths that twisted precariously along steep cliffs. Each step carried the weight of her determination, a seed of hope taking root in her heart, against the backdrop of nature's splendor and its looming perils. Yara paused at a clearing, her breath hitching in her throat. Before her lay the remnants of a cruel Rielid, discarded traps. Their rust's jaws, still sharp and menacing, lay carelessly strewn among the shrubs. She knelt, brushing her fingers over the disturbed earth, the anxiety coiling in her stomach like a serpent. From the corner of her eye, she caught a flicker of movement. Quion Kestrel, his silhouette cutting a stark figure against the canyon rugged backdrop, stepped into the clearing, a smirk tugging at the corners of his lips. Well, if isn't the optimistic gardener trying to save the world one flower at a time, he sneered, his voice smooth like oil, yet laced with disdain. Yara's spine stiffened as she rose, the tension palpable in the air between them.
I'm not kind for you, Creole.
I'm here for the land, for the creatures that call this place home. Those traps, do you even care what they mean? Her voice, though steady, trembled slightly, betraying the urgency of her mission. Quion stepped close, his broad frame casting a looming shadow over her. Care? It's survival, Yara.
You have to understand that.
This is what our community thrives on. He gestured toward the canyon, a sweeping motion that encompasses the very essence of their struggle. You can't live in a dream. Yara shook her head, her heart pound as she took a step. The sun dipped lower, sending shafts of golden light slicing through the branches overhead, illuminating the chaos of discarded traps. But at what cost, Quillin? We lose the very fabric of our identity if we erase these creatures from existence. We could thrive without destroying. She planted her feet firmly, the weight of her resolve grounding her against his cynicism. Queenor's expression darkened, and for a heartbeat the canyon seemed to hold its breath, the tension between them crackling like thunder in the air. As the last rays of sunlight flickered away, Quion's glare pierced through the twilight, a challenge hanging unspoken between them. Yara felt the pull of the canyon deepening, its ancient stones echoing with the voices of those who had come before her. She took a breath, the crisp night air flooding her lungs as if to fortify her spirit. I won't let you silence the cries of this land, Quion. I'll fight for them, for their right to coexist with us. You can choose to be part of the solution, or you will stand against us, but know this. I won't back down. Not now, not that. With those words, the canyon seemed to resonate with her resolve, a promise whispered to the winds, leaving a palpable tension that would surely ignite the next clash. The Weeps Canyon Community Center hums with the low murmur of voices, a collective breath held in anticipation. Sunlight spills through the tall windows, casting golden patterns across the polished wooden floor, illuminating the faces of the townsfolk formed for the meeting. Yara Ridgewell stands at the front, her earth-tone clothing blending harmoniously with the vibrant hues of the posters she has hung, each one depicting the endangered species threatened by looming development. She feels the weight of their gazes, Kirker skeptical, some filled with the warmth of shared purpose, while others are tight with doubt. With a deep breath, she adjusts the braid of her dark auburn hair, a small tattoo of a leaf peeking from her wrist, and begins to speak. her voice steady yet imbued with urgency, echoing the heart of Weeps Canyon. As Yara unfolds the stories of the endangered plants and animals, her voice rises and falls like the gentle breeze rustling the leaves seed. These species are just numbers on a page. They are intertwined with our history and heritage. If we don't act now, we risk losing a part of ourselves. Her words hang in the air, heavy with emotion, compelling the audience to consider the implications of their choices. Yet from the back of the room, Quillon's kestrel voice cuts through the tension like a sharp knife. All of this, he gestures dismissively, his broad shoulders shifting dismissively, is a waste of time. We'd have bigger issues at hand than fussing over a few flowers and birds. Yara's heart races as she gauges the responses from the crowd. Some nod in agreement with Quillon, their expressions hardening against her plea, while others shift uncomfortably in their seats, caught between the two opposing forces. The air thickens with unsaid words, as if the very walls of the community center are straining to hold the brewing conflict within. We've always adapted, haven't we? Quillon continues, his tone smooth yet laced with derision. Why cling to the past when we could be building for the future? His rhetoric pulls at the heartstrings of those who fear change, igniting a flicker of doubt in the air. Middle power triumphs. Yara clenches her fists, the rough texture of her cargo pants grounding her as she stands firm. We can build for the future, yes, but at what cost? We can't sacrifice our heritage for short-term gains. Her emerald eyes dart out the room, searching for allies among the familiar faces. She sees a few nodding, but the majority remain torn, their loyalties split. A young mother whispers to her neighbor, the worry etched on her brow evident, and Yara's heart sinks a little further. The words tumble out of her, impassioned. The land speaks to us. She gestures toward the vibrant flowers outside, and it's our duty to listen. She takes a step forward, the tension in her body coiling tighter, her voice a plea wrapped in steel. Middle power Torats 3. Quillon smirks, his confidence radiating from the back of the room. Like a dark cloud, dampening the flickering flames of hope Yara had fought so hard to ignite. The murmurs swell, creating a storm of uncertainty that crashes against her resolve. In that moment, Yara understands that the fight for the canyon and future will not be a simple one. It will demand every ounce of her strength, and more. Taking a deep breath, she squares her shoulders, knowing that the road ahead is steep and fraught with challenges. I will not back down, she declares, her voice unwavering, the weight of her community divided loyalties pressing against her like a rising tide. As she meets Quillon's cold gaze, a silent vow forms between them. A clash not just of ideals, but of hearts and futures yet to be decided. The air inside Quillon's kestrel office was thick with the scent of polished wood and stale power, an oppressive reminder of the man who sat behind the mahogany desk. Shadows pooled in the corners, the light filtering through half-drawn blinds casting stripes across the floor, like prison bars. Yara Ridgewell stood at the threshold, her heart pound with a mix of resolve and fear. She clutched a folder of damning evidence against it, its corners digging into her palm, a physical manifestation of her mission. The walls felt too close, closing in as she met Quillon's cold blue eyes, a frigid challenge that sent a shiver down her spine. She was hid to protect the canyon and its secrets, but as she stepped forward, the weight of their history filled the room, heavy and electric. Quillon leaned back in his leather chair, hands steepled beneath his chin, a smirk curling his lips. We think you can waltz in, Yara, armed with a handful of paper and demand I halt my operations? His voice dripped with mockery, slicing through her initial confidence. You've done well for yourself, the town little gardener, but let not forget who runs this community." The words were a sweet poison, laced with the threat of isolation, and Yara felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Her resolve flickered, yet she forced herself to hold his gaze, to stand firm as the shadows danced along the walls. "You might control the town with fear, Quilion," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "But there are those of us who remember what this place was before your greed choked it." Her grip on the folder tightened, the crinkling pages a reminder of the lives and species at stake. The tension crackled between them, a taut string ready to snap, and she could see the flash of anger in his narrowed eyes. A moment of silence stretched, heavy with unspoken threats, and Yara's heart raced with the realization that the stakes were higher than she had anticipated. The canyon wasn't just her home, it was a battleground for the soul of her community. Quilion's gaze darkened, the smirk falling away, as he leaned forward, a predator sizing up his prey. "You don't understand the game you're playing, Yara. You might think you have support, but the moment you threaten my operations, you threaten your own standing in our little community." The challenge hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Yara felt a flicker of doubt. The walls seemed to close in further, and for an instant she was caught between the urge to flee and the fierce instinct to fight back. The canyon secrets weighed heavy on her, and as she squared her shoulders, she realized this confrontation would be just the beginning of a war for everything she held dear. The sun hung low over Weeps Canyon, casting elongated shadows across the rocky entrance where Yara Ridgewell stood, resolute amidst a gathering of her neighbors. The air was thick with the mingled scents of blooming wildflowers and the lingering earthiness of tilled soil. A sweet reminder of the gardens she'd nurtured for so long. Vibrant blossoms lined the edges of cobblestone paths, drawing the eye toward the canyon mouth, where a sense of impending conflict hung like a storm cloud. Yara's dark auburn braid swayed gently with the breeze, her green eyes glinting in the waning light. She surveyed the small crowd, hoping for solidarity. Yet beneath that hope lay an undercurrent of tension, one that fluttered in her stomach like a caged bird, aware of the storm brewing just beyond their peaceful intentions. As murmurs of anticipation spread through the gathering, Yara stepped forward, her heart pulsing in time with the rhythm of the protesters' footsteps. "We stand in today, not just for ourselves, but for the creatures that share this land with us, those that cannot speak for themselves," she called out, her voice steady yet passionate. The crowd nodded, some raising handmade signs that swayed like leaves in a gentle breeze. Yet, as if summoned by her fervor, a group of local farmers emerged from the shadows, faces twisted with disdain. Quilion Kestrel, the ringleader, his broad shoulders squared against the afternoon light, pushed through the throng. "You think they care about your little protest? It just weeds to them." His voice sliced through the air, igniting a firestorm of tension. A ripple of surprise and anger swept through Yara's supporters as she squared her shoulders, determined not to back down. "Quilion, this isn't just about weeds, it's about our future," she countered, her fingers tingling with the urge to grab the earth beneath her feet, to let its resilience seep into her resolve. "You're ignoring the signs, the warnings. We can't let greed destroy our home." The crowd around her echoed their agreement, but the farmers' faces darkened, each scowl a reminder of the thin line between community and division. Quilion's eyes glinted with the mix of incredulity and mockery, drawing forth a derisive laugh from his allies, who began to chant in opposition, drowning out Yara's words and fueling the chaos. Amidst the escalating shouts, Yara felt her heart sink as she witnessed friends turn against one another, voices rising in anger and frustration. The peaceful protest was crumbling before her eyes. the very unity she had hoped to foster, morphing into a battlefield of accusations and hurt. "You're too naive, Yara," a familiar voice, once filled with camaraderie, spat from the crowd, a sharp knife twisting in her gut. Disbelief washed over her as she glanced at the passionate faces she had known, now contorted by the weight of fear and desperation. How had it come to this? How could she bridge the divide? As the chaos raged, Yara stood frozen, a witness to the fracture of her community, each shout a reminder of her perceived failure. Her fingers trembled as she clutched the stone pendant around her neck, a token from her grandmother, a symbol of their shared love for this land. The canyon, once a sanctuary, now felt like an et of despair. A dim realization flickered in her mind. This battle was only beginning, and she would have to dig deeper to find strength in the very soil that had nurtured her dreams. With the scent of blossoms mingling with the acrid tension, Yara took a deep breath, preparing to fight not just for the canyon but for the very souls of those she loved, and to confront her greatest adversary, Quion, once and for all. The Weeps Canyon Gardens, once a vibrant tapestry of color, now stood in muted disarray. Wilted plants drooped under the weight of neglect, their petals curling like faded memories. Yara Ridgewell sat cross-legged on the cool earth, her fingertips buried in the soil, feeling its coolness seep through her gardening gloves. Above her, the ancient trees cast dappled shadows, the wind whispering through their leaves like a forgotten song. The fragrance of fading blooms mingled with the rich scent of damp earth, evoking memories of laughter and celebration that felt like a distant et in this moment of silence. As the faint sounds of distant voices fluttered away, Yara's heart sank deeper, the crushing weight of isolation reminding her of the community that had once pulsed with life, now dulled by the failure of her recent protest against poachers threatening their cherished slashed. Yara's hands trembled as she dug deeper into the soil, unearthing a small, stubborn weed that had taken root among her beloved flowers. Each tug felt like a futile attempt to wrestle her despair into submission. "What the point?" she murmured to herself, her voice barely rising above the soft rustle of leaves. The memory of her neighbors, their faces shining with hope during the harvest festivals, flashed in her mind, the fleeting shadows. The laughter, the shared stories, and the warmth of community felt like a different lifetime. Could she still rally them to fight for the endangered species they all cherished? The thought slipped through her fingers like grains of sand. Yara's nails dug into the soil, ill-comforting coolness, her heart racing as images of Culleon's scornful laughter invaded her thoughts. She could almost hear him now, his voice a low rumble, mocking her idealism while he wielded his influence over the canyon. "You think you can save them, Yara? That land no longer yours to protect," he would say, his words dripping with condescension. The mere thought of him made her stomach clench. Yet, was he right? The crushing silence of her garden felt like a mirror to her own doubts, reflecting back the stark question. Could she continue to push against the tide with nothing but her fading resolve? With a deep breath, Yara stilled herself, listening to the soft patter of water from the fountain nearby, a reminder of Fife still flowing, albeit quietly. She could not let the weight of the world suffocate her spirit. The garden was more than just a refuge. It was a testament to everything she fought for. Pushing aside the tendrils of hopelessness, she resolved that if she could gather her community now, she would at least nourish her own roots deeper. Just as the soil held the promise of growth, she would find a way to rise again, even if it meant standing alone. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows through the garden, Yara felt a flicker of defiance ignite within her. She lifted her hands from the earth, now stained with soil and resolve, and stood tall among the wilted plants. Each breath filled with the earthy scent of her beloved garden fortified her spirit. In the fading light, she realized that despair could not bury her dreams, it could only shape them anew. And as she turned toward the distant horizon, a whisper of determination curled her lips into a faint smile. It was time to confront Qiang, not just for the canyon, but for the hope her community desperately needed. The sun hung low in the afternoon sky, casting a warm glow over Weeps Canyon, where nature palette flourished in vibrant splashes of color. Yara Ridgewell stepped softly onto the weather-redder cobblestones of the secluded garden, inhaling the intoxicating scent of blooming flowers mingled with the rich earth freshly turned by her hands. Towering trees stood sentinel, their gnarled roots cradling the ground like ancient memories of a community intertwined with this land. Here, amidst the riot of colors and the gentle whisper of the central fountain, tranquility wrapped around her like a well-worn shawl, calming the storm of thoughts that churn within her. She had come seeking solace, but instead, a flicker of clarity ignited her spirit, urging her to rise, to fight for the future she envisioned. Yara wandered deeper into the garden, the late afternoon sun dappling her sun-kissed skin. She paused beside a cluster of wildflowers, their delicate petals swaying in the soft breeze. She knelt, fingertips brushing the earth, feeling the pulse of life beneath her palms, a reminder of what was at stake. The whispers of doubt and fear receded, replaced by a fierce resolve that surged through her veins. "This isn't just about the canyon anymore," she murmured softly to herself, her breath mingling with the sweet fragrance of honeysuckle. "It's about our future, about hope." The beauty around her became a testament to her commitment, and with each inhalation, she felt the weight of her mission settle firmly on her shoulders. Rising to her feet, Yara's gaze fell upon the sprawling vista beyond the canyon edge, where the jagged cliffs met the horizon. It was in this secluded sanctuary, that the urgency of her fight crystallized. "I have to show them. They need to see what's happening right beneath their noses," she declared, her voice gaining strength, reverberating through the air like a battle cry. The thought of Qiang's kestrel dark ambition to exploit this sacred land sent a shiver down her spine. She could no longer remain merely a caretaker. She would become the voice of the canyon, the advocate for its secrets. As the breeze picked up, rustling the leaves above her, Yara's heart quickened with determination. With a renewed sense of purpose, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small notebook, its pages already filled with sketches and notes. Gripping her pencil tightly, she began to outline a clear, ideas tumbling forth like the cascading water of the fountain. "I'll gather the community, share the truth, rally them to stand with me against him," she whispered fervently. The risks loomed like shadows, but the conviction burning inside her pushed them aside. Now, she was no longer just Yara, the gardener. She was Yara Ridgewell, protector of the canyon, and nothing would silence her voice. In that moment of clarity and strength, the world around her faded into insignificance, leaving only her resolve and the whispering wind. The stakes were higher than then, yet she felt an exhilarating rush of possibility. Yet somewhere, deep inside, a flicker of doubt lingered. Would the community care enough to listen? Could they be convinced to rise from their apathy? As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Yara remained rooted in the garden, her heart swelling with determination, poised on the edge of an impending confrontation. With nightfall creeping upon the canyon, Yara stood silhouetted against the vibrant twilight, her thoughts swirling like the colors of the sky. The plan unfurled before her, like a tapestry woven with threads of hope and fear, each stitch a potential path toward the truth she sought to unveil. The weight of her mission pressed against her chest, yet she drew strength from the beauty that surrounded her. As shadows danced, and a chorus of crickets began their nightly song, she whispered a promise. "To the canyon, to herself. A pledge to face Quion and the indifference of her community head-on. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but for now, Yara felt the pulse of the earth beneath her feet, a reminder that she was not alone in this fight. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the rugged landscape of Weeps Canyon. Yara Ridgewell stepped carefully along the narrow path, her heart thrumming in time with the pulse of the earth beneath her well-worn boots. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and budding flora, vibrant green leaves shimmering in the soft breeze that whispered through the canyon walls. As she ventured deeper, the cacophony of the Eight World faded, replaced by the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant murmur of a hidden stream. It was then, almost by instinct, that she turned off the beaten trail, drawn by an intoxicating sense of promise that beckoned from within a dense thicket. Pushing through the leafy barrier, Yara gasped as she stepped into a hidden grove, a sanctuary alive with the colors of wildflowers and the soft murmur of life. Here, the endangered species she had been fighting to protect flourished, their delicate petals swaying in harmony with the gentle breeze. A sense of hope filled her chest like a warm fire. This vibrant ecosystem could be the key to rallying her community against Qual and Ketrel's manipulative grip. She pulled her camera from her cargo pocket, fingers trembling with excitement as she captured the symphony of life before her. "This is it," she murmured to herself, snapping photograph after photograph, her heart racing with the thrill of discovery. Suddenly, a low rustle interrupted her reverie, and Yara turned, startled but curious. From the shadows stepped a small cluster of rabbits, their soft fur catching the dappled light. They paused, twitching their noses, as if gauging her presence. Yara knelt, her breath caught in her throat, watching as they cautiously approached the vibrant flowers she had come to adore. "Even you see the beauty here," she whispered, the weight of her mission pressing heavy on her shoulders. In that moment, the world felt larger, the tapestry of Fife more interconnected. She couldn't let it slip away. With newfound determination, Yara rose, brushing dirt from her hands and committing to memory every detail of the grove, the kaleidoscope of colors, the symphony of sounds. This discovery wasn't just a hidden treasure, it was her rallying cry, a tangible symbol of resilience against the indifference that threatened to engulf her community. As she turned to leave, a thrilling thought ignited within her. She would present these photos at the upcoming town meeting, show them the beauty worth fighting for. But even as hope surged within her, the specter of Quion Kestre loomed large in her mind, a reminder that the battle was just beginning. The community center buzzed with voices, a cacophony of concern and excitement reverberating in the air. Under the harsh glow of fluorescent lights, the room thrummed with anticipation, a stark contrast to the serene gardens nestled just outside, where the rich, earthy aroma of damp soil mingled with the sweet perfume of marigolds. Yara Ridgewell stood at the front, her hands clasped tightly against her cargo pants, the fabric rough against her sun-kissed skin. A small tattoo of a leaf peeking from beneath her sleeve, a reminder of the beauty she fought to protect. Around her, the familiar faces of neighbors and allies led, their expressions a blend of curiosity and unease. Across the room, Quillion Kestrel leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, a smirk playing on his lips as he surveyed the crowd, his presence a dark cloud looming over the gathering. Yara cleared her throat, the sound sharp in the crowded room. "Thank you all for coming tonight. I know the stakes are high, and I appreciate your support. I want to share something important with you." Her voice wavered slightly, but she steadied herself, reaching into her bag to pull out the photographs that had ignited her resolve. The images were vivid, showcasing the hidden grove in its unspoiled glory, the sunlight filtering through the leaves, illuminating the vibrant flora and the delicate creatures that called it home. These aren't just pictures. This is our heritage, our lifeblood. We can't let it slip away. Quillion leaned forward, his expression a mixture of disdain and amusement. Yara, do you rethink a few pretty pictures are going to sway anyone now? You're wasting your breath. We need progress, not sentimentality. The Grove is nothing but an obstacle to development. Think of the jobs. His voice boomed, echoing through the room, and a murmur of dissent rippled among the crowd, some nodding, others frowning in disbelief at his callousness. Yara felt a swell of anger, her chest tightening as she faced Iv. You will it progress, Quillion, but it destruction. We're losing a part of ourselves, our connection to this land. The crowd shifted, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. She pressed on, determination surging within her. If we don't stand again, we'll lose not just the Grove, but the spirit of Weeps Canyon itself. Isn't that worth fighting for? Her heart raced as she spoke, the weight of the community gaze heavy upon her, but she held firm, her voice ringing with conviction. The room hung in a tenuous balance, charged with tension as murmurs of support began to rise, a tide of voices gathering behind Yara's impassioned plea. Quillion bravado faltered for a moment, eyes darting to the shifting crowd, weighing their loyalty against his own ambitions. You think you can sway them with your idealism, he spat, trying to regain control of the room. But Yara stood resolute, the fire in her green eyes igniting something in the others. It was then that the first brave voice broke through the din, echoing Yara's sentiment, and the palpable shift in the atmosphere was undeniable. The meeting wasn't just a confrontation anymore. It had become a battleground for the soul of their community, and with it, the fight had only just begun. In the heart of the village square, the air buzzed with the vibrant chatter of townsfolk weaving their way through stalls brimming with hand-woven goods and locally grown produce. The scent of fresh herbs mingled with the sweet aroma of homemade pastries, creating an inviting tapestry of community life. Yara Ridgewell stood at the center, her presence a blend of strength and grace, her dark auburn hair pulled back in a practical braid, revealing the small leaf tattoo on her wrist, a symbol of her deep-rooted connection to the Thad. Around her, familiar faces began to gather, their expressions shifting from casual curiosity to attentive intrigue as she prepared to share the weight of her vision. With the sun casting a warm glow over the cobblestones, the laughter and voices receded into a palpable hush, leaving only the sound of a distant wind rustling through the trees, echoing the urgency in Yara's heart. Weeps Canyon is more than just a place we live, it's a part of who we are, Yara began, her voice rising above the soft murmurs of the crowd. She gestured towards the distant cliffs, their majesty silhouetted against the blue sky. The rarest of birds sat in those trees, the very ones we've grown to cherish. They carry our stories and our history within their wings. If we don't fight for them now, we risk losing a part of ourselves, our culture, our future. Yara's words hung in the air, heavy with emotion. She caught the eye of an elder who nodded, his weathered face reflecting a lifetime of shared stories and wisdom. Beside her, her mentor, a wise woman named Alara, stepped forward, her own presence commanding respect. I remember the festivals we held under those trees, the songs we sang to celebrate. Not just the harvest, but the very spirit of the canyon. We cannot afford to forget that. We must rise together, not just as guardians of nature, but as keepers of our heritage. In Alara's tone, Yara detected a flicker of the fire that once ignited the village's hearts, a spark she desperately hoped to revive. As the crowd began to murmur amongst themselves, voices overlapping like the rustle of leaves in a gentle breeze, Yara felt a swell of hope. A young woman, her arms laden with woven baskets, stepped forward.
What do we do?
How would we help? The immediacy in her question was infectious, drawing more villagers into the conversation. Yara smiled, her heart racing. We need to organize a community meeting, gather resources, and spread the word. Together, we can amplify our voices. The time for action is now. With every word, a bond formed. They were no longer mere neighbors, but allies united by a shared purpose, their resolve igniting like the vibrant blooms in Yara's beloved garden. As the crowd began to disperse, energized and buzzing with ideas, Yara stood tall, a sense of pride swelling within her. She could feel the warmth of community wrapping around her like the earth's embrace, but beneath that joy lay an undercurrent of uncertainty. Quion's kestrel words still linger in her mind, a warning that their unity might face formidable challenges ahead. The next meeting would be vital. She glanced back at Elara, who gave her a reassuring nod. Together, they would face whatever shadows loomed on the horizon, but first, they would harness this momentum, this fragile but powerful unity. With a determined breath, Yara turned toward the path leading back to Weeps Canyon. Her heart set on rallying her people to protect the very essence of their shared heritage. The community hall buzzed with an electric tension, its wooden beams creaking under the weight of whispered anxieties and simmering resentments. Dust motes danced in slanting rays of afternoon sunlight, filtering through the tall windows, illuminating the faces of the Thed villagers, drawn together by a shared love for Weeps Canyon. Yara Ridgewell stood at the front, her sun-kissed skin glowing like the vibrant blooms she nurtured daily, while the unmistakable presence of Quion Kestrel loomed nearby, his broad shoulders casting a long shadow over the assembly. A hush fell. Yara gripped a stack of papers tightly in her hands, her heart racing in time with the hum of uncertainty that echoed within the hall. The stakes never higher for the canyon they called home. Today we gather not just as neighbors, but as stewards of our land, Yara began, her voice steady yet passionate, resonating through the hall. She held up the papers, the crinkled edges a testament to her sleepless nights. I have evidence of Quillion's plans to exploit the canyon. This isn't just about profit, threatens our heritage, our very existence. A murmur rippled through the crowd, faces shifting from curious to alarmed, but Quillion's laughter cut through the air like a knife, cool and dismissive. Evidence.
What evidence would you have, Yara?
Just more of your idealistic ramblings. Quillion's voice dripped with condescension, his dark eyes glinting with the thrill of battle. You want to hold on to impossible dreams while the world moves forward. The canyon can be a source of prosperity, and I'll make sure our community thrives. But you would have us live in the past. The villagers exchanged glances, uncertainty creeping into their expressions. Quillion's words sowed seeds of doubt, shaking the foundations of Yara's resolve. Drawing a deep breath, Yara stepped forward, her gaze fierce and determined. I am asking you to remember what makes our community strong, our connection to this land. She gestured towards the windows, where the rugged beauty of the canyon remained untouched, a wild heart beating beneath the surface. By protecting it, we honor our ancestors, and we build a future for our children. Is that not worth fighting for? The air thickened with her fervor, hope flickering in the eyes of some. They leaned forward, listening intently, but Quillon remained resolute, his presence a looming storm cloud threatening to descend.
Emotions won't save our families from hunger, Yara.
Shouting slogans won't pay the bills. Quillon shot back, the muscle in his jaw tightening. The canyon riches could lift us out of poverty. How would you ask us to cling to fading memories while I offer you a chance at prosperity? His voice echoed, a challenge that hung heavily between them. Yara held her ground, painfully aware that this moment was more than a debate. It was a clash of futures, one built on uncompromising ideals and the other on fear of the unknown. As the voices of the crowd swelled and swirled, Yara felt the weight of their collective gaze, a mixture of hope and hesitation. In that charged atmosphere, she recognized that this struggle was no longer just about her plea or quick-on allure of progress. It was about the soul of their community and the canyon they cherished. "I can't promise you an easy path, but I promise you a future worth fighting for," she declared, her voice rising above the chaos. Yara's heart beat fiercely, igniting a determination that coursed through her veins, ready to face whatever shadows linger in the hall. The outcome remained uncertain, but one truth stood clear: she would not back down. Not now, not there. At the edge of Weeps Canyon, where the land dropped away into a vast tapestry of colors and shadows, the air buzzed with the palpable tension of their voices. The community had assembled on the weather-eater stone ledge, their figures silhouetted against the sun-dying glow, which wove gold and crimson threads through the clouds. Yara Ridgewell stood among them, her heart thrumming like a drum, as she felt the warmth of her sun-kissed skin prickling under the weight of their expectations. The fragrance of wildflowers mingled with the earthy scent of damp soil, a reminder of the life they all cherished and fought to protect. Beside her, the wise mentor Elwyn, a figure of quiet strength with silver-streaked hair tied back in a loose bun, surveyed the crowd with a calm intensity, her presence a steady anchor in the swirling emotions. Yara cleared her throat, the roughness surprising her. "We can honor our traditions, while still protecting the creatures that share this land with us. It's not about choosing one over the other. It's about finding a balance that respects. We can embrace sustainable practices, a community stewardship, fostering a connection to the land that goes beyond mere ownership." Pull. Her words hung in the air, muted by the rustling of leaves. And for a moment she caught glimpses of doubt flickering in the eyes of the community leaders, their brows knitted in contemplation. Quion Kestre, his broad shoulders tense as he leaned against the gnarled trunk of an ancient oak, scoffed at her proposal. "Idealism doesn't fill bellies, Yara. What you're asking is a gamble, one that could cost us dearly. You think they'll listen to your dreams when tradition is all they've known?" His voice dripped with incredulity, but Yara refused to let his cynicism dim her resolve. Elwyn stepped forward, her voice steady but warm, like the twilight that cast soft shadows. "Sometimes it's the dreamers who forge new paths. Yara is right. This land has nurtured us, and we must give back. What if we formed a council? A group dedicated to monitoring the wildlife and educating others on sustainable practices? Together, we can embody the guardians we claim to be." The weight of her words fell like a stone, rippling through the crowd, igniting whispers of agreement and reluctant nods. A flicker of hope danced in Yara's chest as she watched the community leaders exchange glances. The tension in the air shifted, the initial resistance melting into contemplation. If we're to move forward, we must reshape our identity, not just as inhabitants, but as stewards of this land, Yara urged, her voice rising with conviction. Together we can build a future that honors our past while safeguarding our wildlife. We can be more than we've been. The fervor in her heart was mirrored in the brightening faces raised her, a collective yearning igniting the space between them. As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over their faces, Yara felt an unfamiliar sense of belonging swell within her. It was as though the earth beneath her feet was whispering of new beginnings, urging them to rise together. The murmurs of acceptance coalesced into a gentle chorus of agreement. And for the first time the lines between tradition and progress seemed less like a chasm and more like a bridge. Yet, even as hope sparked night fireflies in the encroaching dusk, a shadow loomed, a distant edge of resistance that threatened to stake its claim on their fragile unity. As the stars began to pierce the twilight, Yara understood that the true battle was just beginning.